Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And as we got a full house tonight, which is awesome and usual, and looking, I must say, a lot clearer and sounding a lot better all the way from Pennsylvania. Good evening, Beth.
Good evening, and yes, I got my new system up and running. It came, well, officially Thursday, but they tried Wednesday. But yep, got it up and running, and I just noticed, that the bandwidth little setting thingy we have on here, it's actually at full high definition.
Woo!
Before, I was lucky if I hit like the half mark. I have some buffering, but I think it's more like the station doing its thing. So like I've been able to listen to my NPR. I like listening to that live, and it's I think I'm kind of liking the system just for that. But yeah, I'm still getting used to it because I went from 7 to 10. So it's like,
Well, our friend Bullionator's over in the chat, and he says you sound great.
yes, and this headphones is the one I've been trying to use, but didn't work on my old system. Was a gift from Nicole Simard, and Nicole, I'm using your headphone if you by chance listen. Finally,
Yay!
it's only been at least what 3 years. It was before my stroke, so
It was at least 2 years for sure. It was a
yeah.
while. Well,
But
that's
yeah, I don't have to have the camera in my face anymore, so you don't have to see my beard. At least I hope you don't see my beard because I didn't shave.
nope, can't see shit.
Good. Yeah, I always had to make sure I shave because my camera was like literally right here, but now I can put it off to the side so it's not in my face, and I'm kind of like I still got some tweaks to make in setting up, but I'm really excited.
It's a vast improvement, I gotta say. So, yay! Excellent.
Thank you, IRS refund.
And all the way from the wilds of Mississippi. Good evening, Ms. Morgan.
Good evening.
Yay! That's all we got to say tonight, huh?
Yeah, I've been applying for this filling out my federal resume stuff. So federal resumes, they have to look completely different from regular resumes. And I just entered in like all of the publications that I have published from my work with the Sea Grant, and it just deleted all of them. So I was just like,
oh.
yeah, because I'm just plugging stuff into a template that's going to make the format for me, and it's just
Right. Oh shit.
yeah. So I've been dealing with job searching. So if anybody's hiring in Memphis and needs an environmental lawyer or a divorce or really anything at this point.
I know you were saying you were kind of lamenting that you may end up having to work with some awfully shitty people because that seems to be the only people who are hiring are the shitty ones.
No, but not in this case. I really want this Navy job is what I really want. So
excellent.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's not just a total sea of Republican morons, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, good. Excellent. Excellent. So, and joining us this week, all the way from the other end of Canucks fan, good evening, Kevin. I guess.
Whoa, look at that. This guy comes with his own soundtrack. Isn't that amazing? That's the kind of high quality guests you guys get here at the show. That's fantastic.
It's just the Canadians, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. See, I got one of those too. I just don't use it that often. I should probably use it. You know what it is? We had so many problems with Spreaker at the end of 2017 that I'm just happy it works the way it's supposed to. And I've kind of just been like, okay, it's doing its thing. We're just doing it.
It's probably a good thing I don't know how to interject sound effects because I would probably be interjecting them quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't like to do it.
We may teach you at some point anyway, but
well, now I have a system that can handle it.
That's right. Yay. Because I think your system's probably going to be comparable to like mine's almost 2 years old now.
Yeah.
And it's I've already had to double the memory and upgrade the sound card or sorry, the video card.
Well, it was suggested to upgrade the sound card, but I want to see how it goes, because really the most I do is listen to podcasts and radio shows and stuff like that, and this show.
Yeah.
So I might or might not, but as far, I mean, I made a post a while ago for suggestions of people that I know are much more text heavy than I am, and I went with I went to 16K on the RAM, or 16 on the RAM, and I have a terabyte of onboard memory, and then I have another terabyte of external, although it's a little less because I have one that's on the old system.
You got more than that, because I gave you a terabyte and a 500 gig.
Yeah, so the terabyte, the one you gave me, is on the old computer because that has all my videos and podcast archives that I have that if I want to listen to them while I'm laying down, it's in the quote other room. And then I have the terabyte just on this unit, and then I have I have the 500 that you gave me, and then I have a smaller one.
Okay.
So I have in total probably 3 terabytes of memory between the two systems.
Excellent. Beth is a little bit of a news junkie, so she kind of, amasses large quantities of data.
Yeah, which I'm slowly trying to transfer over, and I've discovered that there's really no easy way to do it. The import-export function, while it's nice, it does not, when you import it, it doesn't put it back into its original folders. So I have to go through I make it as an HTML file and do it manually. And I've gotten 3 out of my 6 browsers done in a week.
I told her it'll keep her out of trouble for a while at least.
Yeah, it's definitely doing that. But it's funny going through some of these old articles that articles and reports. And I have a lot of papers, scientific ones, like dealing with that. I'm on aspartame right now. So I have like 20 or 30 papers on that, or going through my SOCUS information. It's like, oh, I forgot I had that. I'll have to put that more recent. And while Morgan witnessed it the other night, I was sitting there working on something. Oh, this question passed. So I'm like, Morgan, can you do this pertaining to one we have Chris on about the Second Amendment? And that was just going through my archive trying to, I'm half organizing and half like, oh, fuck. I'll get to it when I get back to that topic or something. But I'm paying for my news junkiness. But
well, it'll be over eventually, and then by then it'll be time for a new machine, right?
Probably. Fuck that shit.
So some extra good news, because we were talking about NanoCon last week, and we mentioned Beth and I are going to go. Well, good news is Morgan's coming! Yay! Mm-hmm. So all of us will be in Nashville in 2 weeks at NanoCon, so that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. I have to buy my ticket still, but
I already told you, if you show up, your ticket is already bought.
Okay, if you're sure.
You get your ass there, I will buy your ticket.
I wouldn't argue with the lady.
I won't get this offer. Nobody made me that offer. What's that?
You get your ass there. If I see your ass there, I'll buy your ticket or give you one of the two. I'd love to see you come all the way from, where are you again?
Right above Seattle, Vancouver.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yeah, you get there from the West Coast. I'll pay for your ticket too.
Yeah, come on down to Nashville, man. It's all lots of fun.
You guys go to Nashville on purpose?
Yes.
Really?
I have family in there. Family there.
It's for the Nashville Nuns Conference.
No, I'm just teasing you.
I know, but the atheists are invading Nashville.
It's about time.
Well, this is the third one, but yeah, it is definitely time. I went back in the first one was in 2016. So, and that was a lot of fun. In fact, I scared some woman at a Hardee's.
In 2016 is when you also came on our show. It was actually May 1st, 2016. We were airing at CIVL 101.7 FM at the time. Yeah. And what Morgan and Beth don't know is we actually managed to get Deb on air live on the radio to describe to us what a glory hole was.
I remember that because I was listening.
Yep. Well,
I was trying to figure out how she. Oh, you guys don't have the FCC.
And that's because I told you that story because the glory hole was the shirt that I wore in Nashville.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what I scared the Hardee's lady with. Because I was walking around Nashville with a giant glory hole penis on my shirt. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
That was
Oh, Dave in the chat says Nashville just closed the entire city, just locked the doors. Dave, you want to hear the glory hole story again? Okay. So I don't know if Dave in the chat knows about cognitive dissonance, but they're a very awesome podcast, and they are live from Glory Hole Studios. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but my lovely snowball mic here is actually a gift from Tom that came from Glory Hole Studios.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
My Glory Hole microphone. But anyway, I was wearing their shirt from their show that says Glory Hole, and the L is a giant penis. And I was wearing that around Nashville. We went to the Opry, walked around the Opry, taking pictures with the big penis. Well, the morning of the conference, we went to breakfast at a Hardee's, and there was about 8 of us. And I remember, I think it was Celeste had an anime purse. And so when I get up to the cash, the girl, it's like Dave says, tell it slower. Dude, you can play it back a few times when I'm done, you know.
Masturbating to the story right now.
There you go. Was your typical 20-something fast food cashier. And I get up to it, and she's like, y'all having an anime convention? And I just looked at her. I said, no, atheists. And I said, but it's okay. I'm Canadian. Would you like some tater tots with that?
You know, it just popped into my head while you're telling that, and I've heard this story at least 3 times, 4 times, and I'm not complaining, but I'm surprised she even knew what anime was.
I know. Oh, and Dave now says he's done. I can speed it up.
I mean, I barely know what anime is. I mean, I just know the simplistic cartoon. That's it.
That's probably what she also thought anime was.
Yeah,
cartoon.
Yeah, it could be.
You know, I really doubt she goes into Japanimation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. See, because anime to me is different than Japanimation. But that's because I grew up watching G-Force and Voltron, so which I don't consider to be anime, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway.
Without delving into the details, I wouldn't even be able to make that distinction.
Okay.
I just think that's funny.
So, I've got 2 Daves in the chat, so my apologies. But Kevin, so you are co-host of a podcast out in BC called Left.
Yes.
You are.
Yeah, it's called Left at the Valley. We're coming on our 4th year, actually, somewhere in March. And it's a little podcast, and our show was basically designed to we never thought we'd ever go big or anything like that, but we just have a couple of hosts and we talk, and it's usually an interview-based show. And the message of the show was always, you're not alone. You know, I thought that if I come out and be more vocal about atheism and skepticism and all that kind of stuff, it might give courage out there to few people to do the same. That was always the premise of the show. For a little while there, we went on CIVL 101.7 FM, which you came on the show. You were so gracious to come and help us with that. And we did a few shows there, but then they started kind of panicking on the whole idea because I live in Abbotsford, which for Canada is actually, believe it or not, the Bible Belt of the country. There are actually more churches in Abbotsford per capita than anywhere else in the country.
Do you think you're more Bible Beltish there than, say, like the enclaves in Alberta? Because I always think religious nut jobs in Canada equals Alberta, personally. But
that's a good question. I I think you have the same kind of religiousness, just less rednecky. You know, it's much more redneck in Alberta than it is around here.
The more urbanistic religion.
Yeah. But I have to be completely honest about this, especially to your American listeners. It's nowhere near as bad as what you guys face in the this is not Oklahoma. This is like
hell no. Like religious nut jobs in Canada would be like you would probably call them lukewarm Christians.
Yeah. Well, just to give you a quick stat, about 40% of the American population believes in creationism. In Canada, it's less than 15%. So that kind of gives you an idea. It still happens up here, but it's nowhere near that deep. And, you know, the Canadian governments and all that have been pretty good at passing laws to try to keep the country secular, which is ironic considering that the Canadian Constitution, and Debbie, you know this very well, the Canadian Constitution is not a secular document.
No. We have no separation of church and state codified in any law anywhere.
And that's what I find so fascinating between the difference between the U.S. and Canada primarily, and Deb, you and I have commented on this before, is the fact that what we deal with down here in the States, I mean, you in Canada, it's mild compared to us. But yet, through my wanderings through the news, have seen more of an influx of like people like Peter LaBarbera trying to make an inroads into Canada, especially with his anti-LGBT bullshit.
Yes.
And I think, Deb, this is the point that you made way back in the beginning, like 3 years ago, that your apathy when you realize this kind of stuff is what kind of kicked you in the pants to become more vocal. And I, for one, greatly appreciate it because it keeps me actually on a level keel, because I have to remember it's just not the U.S. We have Canada to deal with over in the U.K. I was talking to somebody today from the U.K., a theist who would be probably considered a liberal here in the States. And he's like, was totally blown away because it's like, we actually have a state religion and we're more secular than, you know, and it's just those differences I think need to be coalesced, but they need to be brought out too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a Canadian, I find that, you know, when I look down in the States, I'm in the States myself on business at least once a week. It's getting scary down there. And I mean, you personally, this is only my opinion. It's only worth that much. You guys are like 1 or 2 steps away from becoming a theocracy the way things are going down there. It's
we
really
are very close to becoming a theocracy.
And just to illustrate, when I was in Nashville the first time, which is going to be 3 years ago now, was in 2016. Yeah, whatever, a while ago. It was the year before the, you know, it was the year of the election, but I was there in the spring, so it hadn't happened yet. I swear I had at least 40 people go, "Oh, you're from Canada? How do y'all immigrate down there or up there?" Like even, you know, the one night we went out to dinner, the waitress was like, "Oh, so how do y'all immigrate to Canada?" Like, it was bad, and this was before it actually happened.
Yeah. And the thing is, that mentality, how do you get to Canada, is still very prevalent. I mean, I was talking to someone not about a week ago who's like, yeah, I'm seriously looking into moving to Canada. Mm-hmm. And being that they are about a good 30 years younger than I, would have much better luck than I would, because my age and my disability, I wouldn't meet their immigration requirements. But, you know, that mentality is still pervasive. People, you know, want out. I mean, yeah, I want out, but I know from a serious standpoint, there's no way in hell I'd be able to do it because of finances. Mm-hmm. But so I've not resigned, but I've decided to fight from within.
Well, it's quite easy. And before I say this, I gotta say, I think Morgan needs to shut up, because I can't put in a word edgewise. She keeps yakking all. If you want to immigrate to Canada, it's quite simple. You got to remember a few things. You got to prefer hockey over baseball, because it just is better of a sport. We have strong years. and we have stronger beer. And besides that, it's pretty much the same thing.
Beth played hockey.
Beth
played hockey in Canada for a number of years and was a regular hockey player for 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
Women's leagues. But see, now this is where we come to the point where I have to explain why I'm the world's shittiest Canadian. and I don't know if I don't remember if we had that conversation last time, Kevin, but yeah, I'm the world's shittiest Canadian. I don't like hockey. I hate beer. I hate winter. I don't drink coffee, Tim Hortons or not. I don't like the Tragically Hip or Rush.
And I like all of those things.
Sorry, go ahead, Morgan. Sorry.
I was like, and I like all of those things.
Oh, you know what? Let's do a trade. Let's bring Morgan up here.
Yeah, you can live in Mississippi.
I wouldn't last 5 minutes in Mississippi because I would not keep my mouth shut and somebody would shoot me.
Oh, goodness.
Where it goes. So, Kevin, I like to ask this of any new guests. Were you religious? And if so, what flavor were you?
Oh, boy. Okay. How long is this show?
2 hours.
Okay. I'll give you the short version then. Yes, I was born back east, where everybody is nice and Catholic. I came from a Catholic family, although my mother she practices and still does to this day, and still hopes I come back to the fold. And my father, he was never really much into it.
Yeah.
Of course, we were being dragged into church every Sunday, and just like every normal kid, I hated it. That's when they have you put on that stupid sweater you hate. And somewhere in my teens, I was a bit of a late bloomer into atheism, really, because somewhere in my teens, I started realizing, the thing when you're in church and there's the hymn and you're standing and you're sitting, then you're kneeling, then you're standing and then sitting and you're kneeling. And at some point I looked around and it felt so robotic. It felt so fake. And I thought to myself, nobody actually believes this crap. And that was my exit of the Abrahamic religion. But then, of course, as a teenager, I delved into the woo and all the wonderful stuff of mysticism and all that kind of stuff for a while. There had to be some kind of a force in the universe. It's only in my somewhere in my 20s that I really gave up the whole idea of all that. And it's only now I'm in my 40s that I actually become quite activist about the whole atheism thing. So that's the short version of it.
Cool. I think that for a lot of us in Canada, at least, there's the delay in doing any kind of activism. Now, I became an atheist at 17 very abruptly, actually. Beth and I always joke about that, but I was a happy little atheist in my little bubble for 17 years before I even ever considered doing any kind of activism or even debating anybody.
Yeah, but 17 years, Deb, they didn't have podcasting and stuff like that. We didn't have those means of communicating, right?
No. But it was never, like, it never just came up. Like, I would never even get into a debate with, a friend or anything. It just never came up.
Well, I think part of that is because, you didn't have to deal with it, but we have ministries here in the U.S. that are intentionally exporting the hate. Scott Lively is and Rick Warren are, I won't say solely responsible, but are very responsible for Kill All the Gays in Uganda. Scott Lively is responsible for what is happening in Russia with them imprisoning gays, and some believe World Congress of Family or World Family Congress, I can't remember which the order, they're responsible for the actions in Chechnya.
Is that the one that was just kicked out of Jamaica?
Yep. No, that was Steven Anderson.
Okay.
He's my favorite foe. And while he is dangerous in the sense of he's preaching hate, he's a wannabe. But what makes him dangerous is that he plants churches. So he teaches other fucknuts his stupidity. And yeah, I've been back and forth with Anderson for 9 years now.
It's pretty bad when you get kicked out of a country that, like Jamaica, which is not a country that is very gay friendly.
No, they're not gay friendly at all. So that tells you the enormity of his hate. And I think now for people up in Canada, you know, like people like Deb and like yourself, this exporting of hate is becoming a real thing for you guys. It's not so much a passive thing where, you know, we had Smug who in Africa who went after, you know, filed a lawsuit against Lively, and regretfully that lawsuit was dismissed. I don't know all the details yet as I haven't read any, but Canada is, I think, now getting some of the backlash.
Oh yes, I mean
for a long time, I think you guys were basically hands off. You didn't fuck with Canada. Now, in the last, let's say, 5 years, it's slowly encroaching, and you got some really interesting wingnuts up there. I have to admit.
The rise of atheism and secularism in the U.S. is forcing these people to seek, for lack of a better word, prey outside. That's why they're going to Africa. And that's why Canada's a nice, easy target as well, or they would think, because it's close by. And of course, I live in Abbotsford, which is just east of Vancouver, and we're right on the border with the U.S. I mean, I could just drive my car 5 minutes away. I'm in the U.S. right now, so we see it coming across. You see it coming across, right? You go to the local fair, and all of a sudden there's a creationism booth there. So what is this doing here all of a sudden? You know, so you see it trying to seep across, and unfortunately, I think a lot of Canadians are very apathetic about the whole idea, and they don't think it's going to be much of an issue. And I think this is where atheism needs to step up their game and really say, okay, we are the only line of defense against something like that. And we got to take care of it now before it becomes a problem.
I've seen the same thing happening with white nationalism being exported to Canada. Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's the same kind of goal, you know, now that we've spread our nonsense all throughout the United States and we have Trump now, then we can just go up to Canada and maybe they'll get, I don't know who the Canadian equivalent of Trump would be, if there even is one, but yeah, they get some wingnut elected up there, and then they can have a nationalist ethno state up there too.
Yeah, Canada is very interesting in that sense, because, for example, most of the time, my old man used to say, when the U.S. sneezes, Canada gets a cold, and a lot of the times Canadians have a tendency to look south to what's coming up in trends and stuff like that from the U.S. But then also there's another part of Canada for the French Canadians, my people out of Quebec, and they have a tendency to look to Europe. So there's this fight now. Because Quebec is arguably right now the most progressive province in the country. And then you have the rest of the country that looks south of what the U.S. are doing. So you have kind of this battle that happens in between. And I'm sure Deb will agree with that. I mean, even the Trump-style politics are starting to come up here. Deb, you remember Kevin O'Leary when he tried to run for the Conservatives? He was trying to bring exactly that type of brash, I'm the best, you know, I get the best words and all that. He was bringing that kind of trashy politics right here. And that really, really concerns me. And so far, the journalistic integrity of the Canadian press has stopped that. And thank goodness.
Yes, because we don't, as far as I know, I mean, I could be being duped, I don't know, but we don't really have the fake news issue up here. Like, our major news outlets are still, I would say, pretty trustworthy.
Oh, well, my governor.
Go ahead.
Started to use unironically.
Are you froze, dear?
Yeah, I was going to say my governor recently, he used the term fake news in all caps without any sense of self-awareness or irony. It was in response to a report that says Mississippi has the third highest amount of hate groups in the country. And he was like, look at these outsiders, these non-Mississippians saying all this. Fake news! And I was just like, dear fucking God, someone kidnapped me.
Of course, the Americans have to thank St. Reagan for dismantling the laws that kept their press honest. Canada hasn't gone through that yet. Came close, but we have not. So our press still is pretty truthful as when it comes to newscasts and
maybe
that's what I find funny. And you know, the comment we got on the INC show we did a couple weeks ago,
more now
saying, "Oh, huh."
We have more now. We have a new
Oh.
that. I was going to get to that later too.
Oh, okay. But he's this individual that was commenting was saying, "Oh, the press that published this story, and it was out of Canada because it was a Canadian story." And it's just like I'm thinking to myself, as a news junkie, as one who follows not just I don't actually watch the news per se. I will catch, if there's a story of interest, I will look for a clip of it online because I don't have cable. Primarily it's print, you know, what I can find online, and I don't just do quote lame stream as our orange retard in charge likes to use. But it's like Canadian news or news from the BBC ranks much higher in my book than certain outlets in the US.
Well, and just to clarify though, the INC person, when I reread it, what they weren't trying to say that the CBC was controversial. What they were trying to say is that the news that the fellow was presenting from the Philippines to bolster his case was controversial in the Philippines.
Okay.
So Kevin won't know what the hell we're talking about. But 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a friend of ours on the show who used to belong to what I would call a cult, is the Iglesia ni Cristo from the Philippines. They're a Christian cult out of there. And we were talking about them, and they're pretty militant. Well, a couple of days, like literally, I think the next day, there was a story in the CBC about a man from the Philippines who had just successfully gained refugee status because he was being persecuted by members of the INC in Philippines. They had threatened his child's life and things like that because he not only left the church but spoke out against it. And we mentioned that in the show. Or sorry, it wasn't after the show we did about the INC, because we had Joe on about a different topic a few weeks before, and it was the day after that the news story broke, and we said we got to do a show about the INC. And so we've had there's been a couple of church members now commenting on that video, and one of them was saying that the news article, because the guy who immigrated to Canada, he presented his case to the Immigration Review Board, who then granted him his refugee status. And this church person was trying to say that the news article that I think I can't remember what the gentleman's name was, but that he presented to the Immigration Review Board were controversial and implying that our immigration people should not have taken that as credible evidence of a threat. But the way it was worded on first blush, it sounds like the person is saying that the CBC is a controversial news outlet.
Yeah, sure it is.
I know, we're so controversial. Well,
yeah, maybe we should just talk to the rebel with Ezra Levant instead, right?
I know, fucking rebel media, man. Oh gosh.
I don't know if your American listeners know about this.
Yeah, explain Rebel Media.
Yeah,
I've heard the name, but I don't.
Yeah, it's a little shitty outfit of alt-right conservatives right now. They tried to come in as Sun News into the country. This was supposed to be Fox News North.
And I love we banned Sun News.
Yes, and the Canadian public just did not fall for it at all. I mean, there were a few people that were interested, but they just couldn't get the numbers. And thank goodness for that. And so the government came in and said, well, you know what? Sorry, we're not giving you guys a license. So ever since that, yeah, he's just a website.
They're on YouTube. They have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, he's like the Canadian equivalent of what's his face, Alex Jones. Or something like that.
He's totally the Canadian Alex Jones.
Oh, YouTube took suspended InfoWars for a while.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, he has a new channel that he just uploaded called like InfoWars Censored, but yeah, he kept breaking YouTube's like rules and stuff like that. And then also after the Parkland shooting, that's why he was begging that kid from Parkland to please forgive him and that he didn't mean to do all this targeted harassment and say he was a crisis actor. He pinky promises and all this stuff. And it was just hilarious. I was like, imagine being self-owning yourself this hard. Like it was amazing.
And the caveat to that, for people that don't know, Health Ranger Mike Adams,
Yes,
his entire 1,700 video strong YouTube channel is history.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which, if anybody follows that, I do. Toss, same thing. He repeats Alex Jones's bullshit.
Mm.
Does that deserve a large applause, you figure?
Well,
yeah. I gotta read this though. Boolienator, the other Dave in the chat, he says, this just in, Scott Bio is boycotting Dick's Sporting Goods due to their semi-automatic sale ban. Dick's had to hire a replacement cashier for Scott. Thank you.
What I find so funny about that whole situation is that while the actions by Dick's and by Walmart look good on paper,
they're a little slow in the uptake.
Yeah.
Well,
are we going in that? Are we really going into the subject? Because that's a whole can of worms there.
We spent a whole hour on that last week, though.
Yeah. But it's like I think I did say this last week. It's not as simple as they're severing ties. They're not. Yeah. Well, in some instances, it may not be. It's just like the people throwing shitstorms over this is like.
It's like everybody boycotted Keurig for a while. I forget why, but they were mad because Sean Hannity told them that, and then they were like, I'm going to go buy Keurigs and throw them out my window. And Keurig's like, we don't care. Keep buying them, please.
Exactly.
Oh, Dave continues. On the plus side, they now have a cashier who doesn't have to take his shoes off to count change back. But I was just going to segue into something else, though, actually. So we were talking about the flavors of crazy that we have up here. So, Kevin, have you ever, because we've done this in the past to a friend of mine in Ottawa, he kind of bitched at me that I don't know enough about Canadian politics. I listen to too many Americans, which I probably do. So we had him on election year, and we went through all of the federally registered Canadian parties. Have you ever looked at that list?
Oh, God, that's a long list.
Well, it's only 18 or 19. It's not that bad.
That's a long list.
But there's one that, and I went back a few months ago because I hadn't looked at the list since then, and since 2015, and I went back a few months ago, and there's one that's there now that wasn't there then, and it's fucking scary. It is called the Alliance du Nord, and it is basically, it sounds American. So I'm just going to tell you the tenets that they have up on their website. And the website looks like it was hosted on GeoCities in 1996. Just
that's a good sign.
Yeah. So number 1, immigration. We affirm the integrity of the Canadian borders and the constitutional authority and obligation of the federal government under the law of nations, whatever the fuck that is, to guard and protect those borders, including the regulation of the number and qualifications of immigrants, which sounds, but then they say we will reduce immigration by 50%. This means cutting the number of immigrants from 300,000 to 150,000 per year. Block immigration from African countries or others with disease outbreaks.
I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
Big red flag. Big red flag.
Wait, repeat that again?
The last line says, block immigration from African countries or others with serious disease outbreaks.
Oh,
You know,
jeez.
the United States has a flu pandemic, but something tells me that they wouldn't consider white people with the flu as dangerous.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking not.
As a matter of fact, in the States, there are actual cases of the Black Plague still happening in the southern states.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't stop immigration from coming across.
Great, something
these
else I have to worry about.
these ignoramuses, and I call them that, don't seem to realize that the Canadian the population of Canada is kind of shrinking, if you could call it the native population of Canada, quote unquote. Immigration is actually quite needed. I mean, these jobs in the future and all that, and the population is getting older. If you just cut immigration, you're done. You're done as a country. You're just going to shrink and disappear.
You're fucked. So that's that one. Their environmental stuff. It just says environmental protection with special terms dedicated to our rivers, lakes, and forests, and uses blah blah blah. Health, public. They put health under the environment for some reason. It says public health and nutritional self-sufficiency would exist in Ottawa under an alliance government. Okay.
Nutritional self-sufficiency.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, that'll be fun in the middle of winter. Try to be self-sufficient nutrition-wise.
Self-sufficiently nutritional in fucking Newfoundland, right? Go for it.
Exactly.
You know,
If you can't import food.
I was just in Newfoundland last fall, and they in the western coast, people grow gardens on the side of the road because that's the only land that will grow gardens. Like you stake out a piece of land on the side of the road, put a fence around it, and no one will touch it. That's your garden. And that's what people do in Newfoundland. They can't grow. But anyway, now we get into the really fun stuff. Number 3, abortion.
Oh boy.
The unborn child whose life begins at conception is from that a fully human being created in God's image. The first duty of the law is to prevent killing innocent human life. It is therefore the duty of civil governments to secure and safeguard the lives of the unborn. Cost of big government. The only legitimate purpose of civil government is to safeguard the God-given rights of its citizens, namely life, liberty, and property. We will work to reduce the size of government. It's weird because they've got the government thing in the same section as abortion. But
yeah, a few things about the abortion thing. First of all, where did maybe you ladies can help me with this? Where the hell did the Christians come up with the idea of life begins at conception? Where did that
Because
happen?
then you can ban every kind of abortion.
Yeah, but in
the Bible, it's not until the baby moves.
They don't care about what the Bible says.
Yeah.
According to Abrahamic tradition, it's actually the first breath, right? That's when the soul comes in, the first breath.
Yeah, life did not begin until God breathed into Adam's nostrils or mouth or what. And that actually was the stance of the Roman Catholic Church up until the late 60s, early 70s. Now they flip-flopped back and forth quite a few times between then, but the original early church history was when you took your first breath. But
is that just a simple? Is that an American phenomenon? This whole abortion at first?
Yes,
thing? That's an American phenomenon.
Yes, it's actually part of the religious rights agenda.
And this same religious right doesn't seem to realize that if you look at Numbers 5:11, that's an abortion spell right there in the Bible.
That's the thing. They try. Yeah, exactly what Morgan just did. Facts don't matter. They could give two shits what the Bible says. It's what they believe. And this is
blaming people for sex and saying those are the consequences when a woman has sex and that you deserve them. And it's also an attempt to keep women at home and out of the workplace and from getting educations, and so women can be controlled. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It's misogyny.
Yeah, it's a means of manipulation and control of their minions, and that's why anything of a sexual nature, such as masturbation, homosexuality, abortion, conception, birth control, all that is a means of control. It's like a argument I got into the other day is that it's they present the dis-ease. I'm not calling them diseases, but literal dis-ease, and then they offer you the cure.
Yeah. Oh, you can call it
well, there is a play on word there, but the guy I was debating with just totally missed the point, and I wasn't going to spend a half hour typing out an explanation because he wouldn't have fucking cared anyways. But yeah, it's a whole, and it is a kind of an American phenomenon in a sense that the religious right is using it as one of their main talking points, but especially after Roe v. Wade. But it kind of has gone by the wayside, and then homosexuality took its place. And then abortion came back as a hot button issue. And then it went back to homosexuality, and now we're seeing the same. If you break down each one of them to the root cause, they are all the same. It's manipulation and control, as Morgan says.
Which is pretty amazing, because if a politician was so bold in Canada to say he or she would want to reopen the abortion debate, your career is done. You're done.
Put it this way. Harper was an evangelical Christian, and he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. See, and that's what... And that's what one thing that makes the abortion debate here in the U.S. so interesting is that you have within the religious right, I call it the right, you have alliances between people like Bill Donahue from the Catholic League. So you have the Catholic Church, you have Mitt Romney and the Mormons. Then you have your high theocrats like Ted Cruz. Then you have your dominionists, and they've all coalesced on this one issue, and they want theocratic control, and they want to use the Bible as superseding the Constitution. Well, which fucking version are we going to use? Whose denomination is going to control? And you see bits and pieces, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, even though Trump still is in office, you're seeing they've basically thrown Mitt Romney to the side. Although now he's making a comeback because some in the Republican Party realize that Trump is not their man in the sense of a government.
They kissed each other's ass though recently.
Yeah, because
with Trump endorsing Romney and Romney saying Trump is awesome and all this stuff. But
yeah, so there is some discord within the theocratic movement as a whole. For a while, Bill Donahue was on the outs, and the Catholic bishops were. So it's really the dynamics of the group, because then, and part of the reason why Ted Cruz didn't make it in is people can't stand his father's theology, which he has adopted,
or his weird faith.
Well, yeah, you had. You had to say that because I've been thinking about that for like 2 days now. Don't ask me why.
Dave says Catholic birth control equals thicker walls for glory holes. So that's the first 3. I got 3 more tenets to go.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Next one is defense. It is a primary obligation of the federal government to provide for the common defense of its citizens and to be vigilant in dealing with significant potential threats. Example, border security. Where have we heard that before? As well as with present threats. We oppose unilateral disarmament and dissolving of Canada's defense infrastructure. Who the fuck ever said that was going to happen? The world is still a very dangerous place.
Yeah.
And then we get to the pièce de résistance. Number 5, gun control.
Uh-huh.
The right to bear arms is inherent in the right of self-defense, defense of family and property, and defense against tyranny. It is part of the Creator's endowment to ensure the security of life, liberty, and property, and of the individual and his family, as well as to preserve the nation's independence. The only acceptable gun control is one's ability to hit the target with the first shot every time. A government...
What?
Yeah, I know. A government that fears the guns of its citizens is a tyrant.
Okay.
No, I'm afraid of the guns that are in the hands of the citizens, my fellow citizens right now. Does that mean I'm a tyrant because I'm in no position of power?
I know.
No. I first of all, I gotta say a few things. The idea that Bubba thinks that with his 30-30 he's going to stop the U.S. Army somehow is ridiculous. And to all the American listeners out there, from a Canadian point of view, okay, you cannot cowboy your way out of a gun problem. Okay, you got to give up the whole Clint Eastwood shoot somebody. You know, they just armed the teachers in Florida and they voted the same thing in Kentucky. It's ridiculous. Okay, you guys, you have any idea what a combat situation is? You're not going to just John Woo your way out of there and shoot sideways 5 bullets as the guy's aiming his AR-15 at you. It's not going to happen. You have to disarm the population. Okay, the rest of the world has seen this and has done this. If you take, for example, just Canada. Canada is a gun-loving country. There's a lot of guns in Canada, a lot of hunting, a lot of guns per capita. Not as much as the U.S., about a third about the U.S. But there's about 200 deaths per year in Canada, max. In the U.S., it's over 11,000. Now, people come at me and say, well, yeah, but the U.S. population is much bigger. You're right. It's tenfold. It's 350 million compared to 35 million. So even if you take your 200 and add a decimal, you get 2,000 compared to 11,000, 13,000 plus. You have a gun problem. And they can't seem to figure out that, I don't know what is it about Americans. Are they so American-centric that they can't see outside of their country and realize that Japan doesn't have this, Canada doesn't have this, the UK, Australia. What the hell? Can they not see this?
Well, it's the talking points that they have, you know, it's the whole like good guy with a gun narrative that they have. And it's the whole like, oh, well, somebody could come in there and stab someone. And I was like, if there's a dude who can stab 17 people to death within like 10 minutes, then yeah, I'd be calling for regulation of that knife as well, because it's like a ninja sword. And yeah, it's just the Americans just think that they're all John Wayne and they're all going to fight off the. And also, I love this. So they all say, oh, these are the same people that say blue lives matter and, you know, cops need to be able to shoot anybody they want, basically, as long as they're black. But then when you talk about gun control, they're like, no, but what if I get in a shootout with the government? It's like, which one is it? Do you love the soldiers and cops or don't you? Yeah. And also, like, they can send a nuke to your house right now. So, no, Roy, you're not going to fight them off with your shitty AR-15.
Well, and that's the thing. I got into a discussion with a coworker, a very young one, and I live in a very gun-happy area. Hunting is huge here, and yes, they do fucking hunt with AR-15s. They shouldn't be hunting, period, but that's a whole nother debate. And he has actually said that he needs to fight off the government, and I looked at him and I'm like, I said, do you honestly think you have any prayer against the military of the United States government?
Like
I mean, come on. They have drones. They can sit on their ass in a chair playing a video and blow you away.
Yeah.
Don't even go that far. Don't even go that far, Beth. If the American GI, the regular GI, was given an order to shoot on American civilians, would they actually do it? No.
No, I don't think. I don't think. That's a tough question, but
if Donald Trump tomorrow morning said to the Marines, "You're going to come here and you're going to point your guns at the American civilian population," do you really think the Marines would actually do it? No way.
No. I would hope not, but I would have to ponder that one some more. But what it comes down to is this mentality is you have people like David Barton, who has a revisionist view of what the Second Amendment is, and it's not just Barton, his bullshit has been being pandered by our politicians, that we have a God-given right.
Well, and I keep seeing that meme. I keep seeing that people say, oh, well, you know, it's a God-given right. And I'm like, I'm sorry, can you point to me in the Bible where Jesus was like, thou shalt have an AR-15? Yeah, like, where was he toting around guns? Like, please tell me.
That's what these fuckers are saying. It says it's part of the creator's endowment.
Ew, that sounds dirty.
I know. But I love that line. The only acceptable gun control is one's ability to hit the target
That's fucking scary. That makes it sound like it's like these people in America who I think they legit like just want a reason to murder somebody. Like they have these weird fantasies about, oh well, if somebody breaks into my home looking to kill all of us, it's like, is that what you think everyone wants to do?
And the problem is, the more likely you are to have a gun in your home, and it doesn't really matter what type, you're going to shoot one of your loved ones. The chances of you actually wounding or killing the perpetrator is like less than 3%. If I remember my stats correctly, I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, the NYPD hit rate is 18%. And that's the NYPD.
And those are people that train for that shit.
Yeah. And you're
going back to the God-given right thing, they get it from Luke. Well, this is where they say it's from. They get it from Luke 22:35-38, where it says, "Then Jesus asked them, 'When I sent you without a purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything?' 'Nothing,' they answered. And then he said to them, 'But now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. For it is written, he was numbered with the transgressors, and I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment,' yada, 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 yada." So it goes, "See, Lord, here are two swords." Yes, and I haven't delved into an exegesis on this or hermeneutics. I just came across this the other day. That is the verse they use to justify God-given right to a gun. I see the word sword.
It says sword though, not gun.
I know.
But you ladies do know. You ladies do know what was Jesus' favorite gun, right?
Oh, I know this
nail
one.
Gun.
It was a nail gun.
Nail gun. All right. So the next one in number 6, individual rights. Human dignity is a basic right recognized by our founders. What found? Okay.
Yes. Do you have a Canadian George Washington?
No, we were founded by the Hudson's Bay fucking company. Like, they were all about fur trapping and blankets.
Yeah, well, it depends which party you put it in. There was not like a war like in the States, but you know the fathers of the Confederation. I guess the first prime minister could be our version of George Washington.
Sir John A. was a drunk.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
But anyway, it continues on. Each and every citizen shall be free to choose his friends and associates and to expect honorable laws and justice from government, money, and banking. Oh, sorry. Money and banking is the next. They put like 2 different unrelated things in the same section. I don't know. It says the Alliance will launch a criminal investigation on banks. Now, this gives me pause more than anything else. It says the Trudeau Charter will be removed.
Oh, is he talking about Pierre Trudeau? I'm assuming so.
The Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
Because I googled Trudeau Charter, and that's the only thing that came up. So
yeah, what is the Trudeau Charter?
That's our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's like your Constitution.
They want that gone?
That's what they're saying.
Boy, I thought they were all about God-given rights. Now they want to get rid of the Charter of Rights?
But see, the Charter of Rights and the Bill of Rights down here is one of the things that the Reich wants to abolish.
See,
this reeks of the religious Reich and sovereign citizen infiltrating into Canadian
That's thought. Why I brought it up, because it sounds so American and so right-wing nut job.
Oh, totally.
And these fuckers are a federally registered political party.
Yeah, but these guys are super fringe. I mean, I've never even seen that party anywhere.
Oh, I know.
They would not be fringe down here. Down here, that could be the Republican Party platform for the party in Mississippi. Like,
you can't call it fringe anymore because they, as Dev said, they are making that push for recognition, and this is what has lulled many here in our country. Is that I've been tracking the Reich for probably 15 years now. Well, yeah, well, I started blogging in 2001, so since then. I know writers who have been doing it longer than who I follow, and this is fringe. You don't have to worry. But that's the common response. And I even get it from other atheists. Oh, that's just fringe. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry. When a minister gets up on a pulpit on Sundays preaching that I should be executed, now I got fucking politicians spouting the same fucking bullshit. It's no longer fringe. Don't lull into that mistake that it's just a fringe group, because that's how the bullshit here in this country started. Just fringe.
And I want to point out too, they registered within a week of Trudeau getting elected, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the biggest thing. My message to Canadian listeners and is don't be lulled that a group such as this is just fringe. That scares me.
I mean, the only reason I know about them is because I researched who was registered in Canada. But if actually, this becomes important, Kevin, because they've relaxed the requirements of federally registered parties to float candidates. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I was not.
It used to be one of the biggest hurdles for some of the smaller parties to float candidates was that they had a financial requirement. I think it was $1,000 per candidate. So if you think of a federal party trying to float candidates, that it's a small party, that could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, if you're trying to get a lot of candidates out there. So because they've now, I believe they've rescinded that requirement completely, because where I heard it, because I was really happy, the Rhinos have said that they're going to try getting candidates out again, because I want to vote Rhino so badly. But
you think they did that maybe in response to the popularity of the proportional system?
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised, because Trudeau said he can't or won't revisit that. So this could be a way of sort of compromising on it. I don't know. But if that requirement is removed, it now becomes highly more likely that wingnuts like this are going to start putting candidates out. And if they're able to get enough candidates in the right places, say, where you are, or Alberta, they might actually get somebody elected, which is scary as shit. I hope not, but to me, it bears paying attention to, at least.
One thing that really irks me about the way people vote is people vote the same way they hold on to religion. For example, in any country, let's say, for example, a person, they say they're conservatives, but then you start asking them questions about specific points of policy, and you realize really quickly they're not conservatives at all. They've just been raised in a family of conservatives. They've always voted conservative. Mom and dad have always voted conservative, so they do the same. The average voter, whether it's American or Canadian, I'm sorry to say that, but the average voter is an idiot. And they really don't know what's going on. They just go with, I like this pretty color. We've always voted blue, or we always voted red in our family, and I'm doing the same. But the average voter is actually not informed, and that's a big problem, especially when you have these, like I said, those fringe, quote-unquote, fringe elements coming out of the woodworks. And this is what happens. The apathy of the population becomes the weapon they wield against you.
Yeah. Well, and it's also not just apathy, it's just like misinformation too. I mean, you see people in the United States, I mean, you're talking about rebel media and how that didn't succeed as well in Canada, but then Breitbart down here became, is quite successful now. And yeah, it's because, I don't know if it's just Americans are less critical thinkers. I don't know if it comes from the whole John Wayne mentality that, I, the individual, I'm smarter than all the experts, and, I know better and I can figure it out for myself. But
the point I was making earlier is I said, I don't know why Americans love Ronald Reagan. I think he's probably one of the worst presidents.
Oh, I agree.
So when Reagan dismantled the regulation, the news in the United States didn't have to be truthful. It just had to be profitable. And you can tell that because when I watch American news, and I try not to because it's absolutely horrible, what you'll hear is, tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll tell you how to change your spare tire on the side of the road without getting raped. News at 6. And you're thinking, what the hell was that? And you realize that the biggest player in this whole, whether it's the gun thing, whether it's the politics thing, the media is the biggest player in all of it.
Local news is very bad because, especially right now, we have groups like Sinclair Media that's bought out so many local news stations, and they are required to play things that feature like Seb Gorka, who is really into Hungarian fascism, worked for Donald Trump. They're required to play like certain things that, just repeat basically Trump MAGA talking points. It's it's really scary. And then you're seeing, with a Fox News thing, they're entertainment. They don't have to be truthful.
Yes, exactly. It's no longer what's truthful, it's what sells.
Yeah, and Fox News, it makes a ton of money scaring the shit out of people by saying, oh, they're coming for your guns, and they're, all this nonsense.
This is why the average American thinks that there's a gun robber and somebody is about to shoot them and break into the house around every corner. It's not the truth. The facts don't point to that at all. But that's gone into the mentality of the average American, and that's a scary situation.
Yeah, also the fact that there's so many guns in this country, too, I'm sure has nothing to do with that. Everybody's bristling with weapons like we live in freaking Afghanistan. It's insane. But yeah, it is this whole idea that, oh, they're going to get me. And I'm like, Jan, no one cares about you. Shut up. Like this fantasy of, oh, I can't wait to shoot somebody who comes in my house and tries to murder my family. And I'm like, okay, well, that's very unlikely to happen. Like, bitch, you ain't special. Like, why do you have this paranoia that these people are like after you? Like, sounds like you need to take some pills or something. Jesus.
I mean, gun mentality is so pervasive in the States. They even great shows that we like as atheists. Remember, like the Mythbusters? It was a great show. But the show always ended with what? Explosions and gunfire. Why? You're debunking a myth. Why do you have to blow it up? Why do you have to shoot it? But it's ingrained in the fabric of Americana right now that I don't know if you guys will ever be able to get out of it. And I sure hope you do.
I just hope it doesn't come up there, but it seems like there are some people who are trying to.
They're trying by the look of it. I mean, those fuckers are scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. To all you American listeners there, I don't want to be mean when I say this, but the American dream has moved up north of the 49. Let's face it. You guys don't have the country you think you had. You don't have that anymore. The American dream's up in Canada. It really is. And maybe the America should take a look at what's going up north and start mimicking that.
Well,
no, we know better.
It brings up 3 points that you just mentioned. First of all, we have one-issue voters. I know people that will vote for a candidate based on the fact, oh, I don't believe in abortion, but yet their domestic policy is shit.
Oh,
okay. Go ahead, Deb.
I just gotta say, I was listening to a show, and I can't remember who the fuck it was now, but they were talking to somebody, and this person was, I think it was one of Steve's shows. He was talking to a Christian or something, but he was just, this person would kept saying, I don't care who the candidate is or whatever. If they support abortion, then I won't vote for them. I don't care what party they are or what other their platform is. If they support abortion, I'll never vote for them.
Which means they never vote Democrat.
Yeah, and the thing is, the problem with that is, to pick on President Trump, is that, and this was in a discussion I had recently, what has he done? Where is MAGA? What are you trying to take America back to? The 1950s?
Yeah, well, everything was so great then, right?
Where is the fucking infrastructure that he said was being fast-tracked 2 days after the Washington Amtrak disaster?
Beth, he defeated ISIS in 30 days.
With his plan.
Yeah,
maybe that's why
that plan?
Yeah,
so secret he couldn't tell anybody about it. It was going to defeat ISIS in 30 days.
Yeah, and a second point, we're saying as far as voting, this was a meme, and I couldn't, for some reason, figure out how to screen share it on this computer yet. It says Christianity if you're the main little cartoon figure, if you're pro-choice, you're a baby killer. Arrest somebody. Same person. Gays and lesbian are unnatural abominations. Stop them from getting married. Atheists are amoral agents of Satan. Put God in the schools and courts. Show them that we're a Christian nation. Somebody ban this obscene art exhibition. The second character. If you want to believe in God and teach your kids about Christianity, that's your right. Please, just let the rest of us make our own choices too. Main character. Stop persecuting me. Stop disrespecting my beliefs. Why are you waging war against Christianity? That's the mentality we are fucking dealing with.
Yep.
Yeah. all Abrahamic religion, we could say, are dominionist in nature. So it's part of the religion to try to take over the world. So there's no getting around that.
Absolutely.
So that's why they feel so persecuted.
I've had Muslims tell me that, flat out, we're taking over. It's like, no.
I love watching you debate on Facebook with some of these guys. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
I jump in once in a while and give you a bit of a hands up and all that.
Well, as I said, I don't do quite as much since I started the second show, but I still get a kick out of it. And you're in the one that says "Be Polite," aren't you?
Oh, I'm in a lot of them.
That's the one we call it the crazy group, and now we've got the super extra crazy group, which is the no bans or something.
Yeah, bans are blocking.
No bans are blocking. Yeah, that's the super extra special crazy group.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Deb when she does her Islamic debates, because I'm not real strong on the Quran, whereas I went to college for Bible and theology to become a minister, so I'm very strong on Christianity, whether I want to be or not. It's just there. But yeah, watching her debate some topics in Islam is just, it's priceless.
I get some of the funniest people though. It's so funny. And it's funny, I've never gotten any like real serious backlash, which I don't understand why, but I get a lot of people who want to, they're debating me Islam. I'm literally saying your religion is a horrible idea, and they send me friend requests.
Yeah, explain that one to me.
I don't get it.
They want you to be their little pet project. They're gonna try to convert you one-on-one.
I've had a few that do that. In fact, there was one on Saturday, and I didn't even accept this guy's friend request, but he's PMing me these stupid Islamic videos, and I'm like, I don't get it, because he acts as if he doesn't understand English, but when he replies, like when he actually replies with some length, it's not terrible. Like, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good English. So I'm like, are you just copy pasting English shit or something? Because he acts like I have said, look, I'm an atheist. I don't believe this stuff. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. I'm saying it's a horrible ideology. And he's just like, sends me another video or something, and I'm like, what part of I think this is bullshit are you not getting? But whatever. I don't know. I get a kick out of it, but I'm baffled as to what, like, occasionally I'll get, you stupid bitch, or you whore. I'm like, you're saying that like it's a bad thing. Why would I not want to be a whore? I'm sorry. What is the bad thing with this?
No, there's something really wrong with Islam, because Christianity has always been anti-science and anti-progress. Even though a lot of Christians love to tell you, no, we invented science. Yeah, bullshit. You did not. Okay, the only thing was the church was the only game in town. That's the only extent of what you did. I mean, for Christ's sake, the church opposed streetlights when they came out, right? Because God made the night to be dark. But Islam was pro-science for the longest time, until I forget the name of the imam. It was I think it was around the 1100, and he decided to qualify mathematics as being of the devil, and they really turned their back on science, and it's a shame. It's really a shame, because we have a lot of things that are all our numbers or numerals and all Abrahamic and all Arabic, I should say.
But now, of course, you get the Muslims who say, "Oh, but the Quran predicted all of this science."
No, and it's so bloody stupid. They have an entire wing of and a building of people trying to decipher something they can find in the Quran. So as soon as you have an invention that comes out, they try to look into the Quran if they can find some kind of passage that can somehow be construed to mean that.
The time it's no better than the people who tried to say Nostradamus was predicting shit. It's so vague that you can make it mean whatever the hell you want it to mean, and it doesn't say what they say it says. And I even just like the big one that gets lobbed at me all the time is, oh, the Quran predicts the stages of embryonic development. No fucking does not. And I've had actual medical well, Zakir Naik is a medical doctor, and he says this shit, and I'm like, you're blatantly lying to people because you're a fucking doctor, you know better. And it's the stuff that's in there is wrong, and yet they tout it as, oh, well, it's just, you know, slightly different language because it was new and they didn't like, no. And even if it was accurate, which it isn't, they say, oh, well, nobody knew this before the Quran. Bullshit. Aristotle was saying this shit like ages and ages before Muhammad and the Quran. And, oh, well, Muhammad was illiterate, so there's no way he could have known that. I'm like, bullshit. In fact, I just found out that one of his companions that he did his quote reciting to had traveled and was well versed in ancient medicine. So yeah, no, it's plagiarism, assholes. It's just ridiculous, but I get a kick out of it. I do. I'm still trying to find a Muslim to debate on the show, actually, and I never can find any takers.
The problem with that,
I wonder why. If they've ever read any of your shit, you'll rip them to shreds.
No, hold on. The problem with that is they always have their trump card. They always have the trump card of saying, you know, have you read the Quran in Arabic?
Yes.
You'll say no.
Card. It's not a trump card.
To them, it is. To them, it is. Because even when you talk to Muslims, they'll say it's written very differently, or ex-Muslims. I've got several of my friends are ex-Muslims, and they say, yes, the Quran is written very differently in Arabic than it is in English. It's not. It's much more apparently eloquent and poetic in Arabic. I don't know. I can only take the.
I've got the rebuttal to that.
Okay.
I will ask, is your God omnipotent and omniscient? Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, Allah can do anything. Okay. So why the fuck does it matter what he should be able to write it in every fucking language there is, because he created the languages, right? Yep. Right? And he should be able to create it so that any idiot like me can open it up and understand what I'm reading without an interpretation, without a commentary, without a hadith or any of this shit. I should be able to open the goddamn book, read it, and know what Allah wants me to know. If he is all-powerful and all-knowing, he should be able to accomplish this. No, then he's not all-knowing and all-powerful, therefore not a god, and I don't have to give a fuck about what he says.
You know what? Dick moves too, right? Like, for example, if you go back to Christianity with Jesus, Dick moved for Jesus. Like, come on, he wanted to spread the word. Why didn't he invent a printing press? I mean, it would have been so much quicker to do it there, right?
I know. Oh, and get this. So the main rebuttal I've gotten to that point, well, Allah is testing you.
Yeah, of course.
Testing me for what? He already knows exactly what I'm going to do, right? Well, yeah, but it's a test for you. Well, but I already know what I'm going to do. So who the hell are we testing for what? And they never have an answer for that.
All of the stories of the Abrahamic religion are so full of holes. It's just absolutely amazing. And you could totally tell. You go anything from Genesis, for example. You start with Genesis with the tree of knowledge. Well, okay, if God is omniscient and omnipotent, why does he need a tree of knowledge to begin with? Does he need to eat a fruit once in a while to stay omniscient?
Yeah.
What does he need to begin with?
He put it out there to fuck with humans. That's why.
I mean, why does it? Why does it need this tree to begin with, right? Oh, it was a test. Well, why would you test two people that have no concept of what's right and wrong? This is like talking to a 2-year-old. They don't know that disobeying is a bad thing.
Yes,
so
right.
why test them? And he's omniscient. Wouldn't he know exactly what the problem is to begin with?
Well, and that's what makes it funny, because that whole discussion leads into free will.
Oh yeah.
Well, if God is omniscient, and is some take that the Genesis 1, 2, and 3 as a precursor or a prophecy of Christ's coming, then we don't have free will, because God already knew what we were going to do. And it's like you said, it's like
there's no free will in Abrahamic religions. None.
No.
And the Human Genome Project in 2011 when they finished that?
Something
the Human
like
Genome Project proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that in our DNA there was never at any point in time during our history any less than about 13 to 20,000 humans on the planet. We came very close to extinction, but there was never any less than that. So Adam and Eve never happened. If Adam and Eve never happened, original sin never happened. And Jesus came for what?
Yeah.
This is why they fight evolution, because right there in the DNA says right there that your entire religion is bullshit, all of it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and this is a point, and I return to it often, especially on the show, is that the whole point of trying to get creationism in school is, if you get rid of creationism, you get rid of the need for religion. You get rid of that means for manipulation and control. Because if creation didn't happen, then the rest of the Bible is bunk, other than the historical aspects concerning the Judaic religion and the people of Israel in general. So they fight so hard to get creationism or intelligent design. They're the same thing, which was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt in the Dover trial. They fight it because they know if creationism is not held to be legitimate, which, as you said, with the genome project, I mean, they basically stated in that project, if we went below 9,000, 10,000 people, it would have caused a DNA bottleneck. Yeah. We would not have the diversity in color, in hair color, in eye color, etc., etc., etc. We would have bottlenecked, and we would never get the diversity we do have in the different phenotypes that we see within the human race.
Oh, I mean, that'd be awful, because then you end up all looking like me. And
yeah, or at least they would stop taking the Bible literally. And then when you stop taking the Bible literally, it's like religion just becomes like a personal thing, and you're not really concerned about it ruling politics. Mm-hmm. And that's what these people really want their religion to do, is to interfere with politics.
Yeah.
But there is hope on that side. For example, right here in BC, in British Columbia, it's been illegal to teach creationism in school since 1996. I don't know about you in Ontario, Deb. Was that like over there?
I don't think it's illegal, but I am quite sure nobody does it.
Yeah, it goes from province to province, right? It changes from province to province. But right here in BC, we know that you're not officially supposed to teach creationism. Of course, they'll try to slip it under the average road teacher.
Yeah,
exactly. So there is some hope on that sense in that fight.
But I just want to point out, I found, because in the show, my new show, I'm reading the Quran, and I just found out a few episodes ago, Allah specifically says he does not give you a choice.
Oh.
So there's no free will in Islam at all?
Nope, none.
At least according to that verse, or Sarah.
And it says a number of times that Allah will help people he likes, and he will fuck up people he doesn't like. So even if there's a chance that you might believe at some point, if he doesn't like you, he will make it so that you can't.
Gee, how nice of him.
I
The other
know.
day, I was having this wonderful conversation with a theist, and he was telling me how I need to turn my life to, I think it was Allah or something like that. And I said to him, no, I already have a place in Valhalla with Thor and Odin. I don't want to go to your hell. You know, I'm not interested in the ticket for that. I've got my reservation. He says, no, you got absolution and you got salvation with Allah and all that. I said, well, you know, the pygmy god, individual pygmy god, Puang Matua, gives me salvation and a pig. Can you best that offer?
Yeah.
He had no answer.
That would be cool to have yourself a little pet piggy.
Hey, you get salvation and a pig. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Way better than that lame Jesus offer.
Oh,
Just out of curiosity, Deb said that you were active in some of the debate groups. What are your favorite topics to debate with the?
Oh God. I think I debate a lot of people, especially when it comes to evolution. For me, I was raised Catholic. It's only when I moved here to BC and I realized people were fighting against evolution. I never ever doubted or heard anybody doubt evolution until I moved in the West. Ever saw it. Then I saw this over here, and people are doubting and fighting this, and I say, "What the hell? This is like debating flat Earth." Are you kidding me? This is stupid. It's ridiculous, and that's another one. That's always good to debate flat Earth.
Yeah, I belong to a group on YouTube. It's called the Great Debate Community, and we take on flat earthers. In fact, we have a regular hangout that we do. It's called Rum and Coke Night. And the general premise is we go and troll flat earth channels. There is a lot of them out there, unfortunately.
Now, I think it's important for us to realize, as an ex-Christian and theist, I understand where these Christians are coming from. And the best example I give of that is I've always been a fan of dinosaurs, right? As a kid and even today as an adult. Of course, my favorite dinosaur is everybody's favorite, the T-Rex, right? Everybody loves T-Rex. Well, come on, everybody loves T-Rex. You know, as a child, in my fantasies, I rode this dinosaur into battle. I fought him. You know, I had a great time with T-Rex for the longest time. But just in my lifetime, the animal itself has changed dramatically. I don't know if you remember them when we were kids. They had these little plastic figurines of dinosaurs, and the T-Rex would usually stand up and the tail would drag on the ground.
Yes.
Well, 20 years later, the animal is no longer like that. It's more like a teeter-totter with, you know, the tail becoming a counterbalance to the weight of the animal up front. And then somebody like Jack Horner, the paleontologist, comes out lately and he says T-Rex was probably a big turkey vulture. He was not the lion of the Cretaceous. That hurt me. That hurt me personally. Because, like I said, this is my pal. This is T-Rex, my pal. I went to battle with this thing. He's the lion. I don't want him to be the vulture. I don't want this to be true. But if you're intellectually honest and the science proves that, yes, maybe T-Rex was nothing but a scavenger, you have to accept it. And I think Christians feel the same way about Jesus. They don't want to see him dethroned. Even if we were to come up with the mummy of Jesus tomorrow, they will come up and say, well, you know, he ascended to heaven spiritually and his body remained behind. They don't want him to be dethroned. And that is the entire problem right there in a nutshell. How to let go of your blankie, let go of your childhood fantasy.
Yep. Well, and
but I don't want to give up my pinky.
Well, same with
although the cat claimed it, so.
My favorite dinosaur was always the Brontosaurus, and then for a while they said that no, there's no such thing because somebody put the wrong head on the wrong body or something. And now they've come back and said, "Oh wait, no, actually it is a thing." So I'm like,
okay. but that's a weakness of science, don't you see? It's ever changing.
It always changes. Oh my, how can you do that?
Yeah, but nobody's ever said, oh my God, I'm reconsidering my theoretical science here because of your knowledge of the Bible. Nobody's ever said that.
No, ever.
Changed by better science. It's improved by better science. It's never been improved by scripture.
I always like when they get into the Well, the question of what has creation science put forth as an advancement in medicine or science in general, and they're always like, well, so and so, he was a creationist and he created this. Yeah. Okay, so creation science had nothing to do with it.
Yes,
they don't get that point. It's like he can be my one doctor when I had MRSA, and I don't know how we got on the topic. He and he said, "Well, I'm a creationist." I'm like, and I'm sitting in my chair thinking, "Oh fuck, great! You're gonna cut a hole in my arm to drain my
abscess
thing." And yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the word. I said to him, I said, "You do follow science, don't you?" "Oh, yes." I mean, he was actually pretty cool about it. He goes, "That's my religious belief. My medical career is based on science." I did ask him, but I don't think he ever answered it. How does he balance the two? But
yeah,
it's just like he readily admitted that his whole his career in medicine is based on science, but yet he believes in creation. He doesn't claim to be a creationist doctor.
No. There's a cognitive dissonance happening there. And you see that all the time, right? People that, like we were saying earlier in the show, people that say, oh, Christians invented science. No. Even if you take somebody, Isaac Newton was a believer. Yes, you're right. But Isaac Newton, when he decided to discover or describe gravity, he didn't refer to the Bible, refer to a passage, and then did some calculations. He didn't do that. He did some science. He went through observation, experimentation, blah, 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 blah. That's what he did. Just because he happened to be a man of his time and didn't have the proper knowledge that we have today, do you really think Isaac Newton today, if he was in this day and age, stepped through a time machine, would actually still believe in God? God, no.
And even if he did, it's like, well, I'm pretty sure he would, at least like be maybe a believer in some kind of God, but wouldn't take the Bible literally.
Yes.
I'd rather them like, I'm fine with people believing in God or whatever, as long as we're not trying to like say, oh, well, I base all my medical opinions because I believe in creationism literally. Like, no, get out of here. Or I let it influence the way I vote. No.
Well, and that's what's so scary about these people that cling on to creation science and use it to inform their medical decisions. I mean, there are some that I track that have gone so far as to say, well, there's no germ theory.
Mm.
Okay, and the problem with that is germ theory is one of the bedrocks of medicine. That's why we have antibiotics. And it's just like, one guy, and I'm only reminding bits and pieces of the what he posted, was, well, there's no, the viruses aren't live. Well, technically they're not, but they're alive in the way that they're alive, and viruses don't exist. And I mean, it was just like, and then he got into some really off the wall woo shit. And he's like, well, that's why I'm a creationist. This all fit. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't even fit into that. But it's like, I find it's so discouraging, because then you have, I'll use Kent Hovind as an example, who peddles B17.
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, there's a video I have, and I think it's still online, where he is peddling B17. He wasn't even out of jail for 90 days yet. I think he was out of jail 67 days. And B17, for those that don't know, is not allowed to be sold across state. It's definitely across state lines, but I can't remember if it's completely banned from being sold in the U.S. And he's blatantly, and he's basing his use of it off of a biblical verse in Genesis. It's like,
it's amazing that he's willing to read in the book to justify what he's doing. Again, he'll say in the same breath that he doesn't believe in viruses, while all he has to do is look under a microscope.
Yeah. Well,
the
virus wasn't Hovind. That was somebody else, but I jumped to Hovind.
But he will, I guarantee you, he might eat shellfish, and I guarantee you he wears polyester blend and shit like
but
that.
yeah, he also wears glasses.
Yeah. Glasses, exactly.
That's always my favorite because I wear glasses.
It's like all these idiots that go on Facebook and they start to deny how science is useless and evil. You're using the tools of technology to deny science.
I know.
I mean, can you have the biggest irony right there?
You're on the.
Oh, but technology is not science.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
Yeah, it came from a tree. You're right. Computer tree. I've got an apple.
Oh man. Speaking of trees, I don't know, Kevin, if you haven't seen this yet, the Great Debate Community, one of the founders or whatever, Steve, he and a friend of his, they just recently started a podcast, and they're doing extremely well. It's called the Non Sequitur Show. And they just hosted a discussion between Kent Hovind and Aaron Ra.
Yes, I love Arn. I love Arn. He's been on our show several times, and he's always a great guest. And
well, Hovind with it was amazing because he said, Aaron said he'd been waiting for that opportunity for 20 years. So he brought all of his guns.
yeah, I can imagine. There's plenty of great videos of him with Eric Hovind, that's for sure. But to see him.
Yeah. No,
and apparently the first night Kent kind of mysteriously disappeared and didn't show up.
I was there for that, and so initially they were going to do it as a live feed via Skype, and apparently Kent couldn't figure out Skype. So then they said, okay, fine, we'll just do it as a normal hangout and live stream it that way, no problem, whatever. Well, then they were talking to Kent's quote IT guy, which I don't think knows anything about IT, but whatever. And they were getting all these weird stories like, he's having signal issues. We have a really bad signal out here. And then he said, he's gone off to record his side of the discussion and was going to put it up somewhere. And then he said, but right now he's doing another show. And they were like, how the fuck can you do that if you have no signal? And it just the story.
And he's recording his end of the discussion, right, without anybody rebutting him. That's a great way to get your message uninterrupted.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it did happen the next night, and it was epic. And
I haven't seen it yet.
You need to see it. And the after show is even funnier because I got to sit in on the after show, and I came in about halfway through, and I don't know if you've ever heard, if you know many Christian apologist YouTube personalities, but there's a fellow by the name of G-Man. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with all these guys.
Oh, good grief. He's this diehard Christian. He tries to do apologetics, but he really sucks at it. But he came in the hangout at the end, about the halfway mark, and it was the funniest shit I have ever seen because Aaron was just like after about half an hour of listening to this guy and trying to rebut him, and he finally came out with, you can't be real. Like, you're fucking brilliant. I'm loving this, but you can't be real, man. And it pissed G-Man off so bad. It was so hilarious. And then G-Man got mad because Aaron and everybody was saying that he was an animal, and he took offense to that. And then he really got mad when Aaron said his parents were animals. And then he picked up his cat and I mean, he wasn't hurting the cat at all, but he picked up his cat and put him right in the camera and was like, is this an animal? And the look on the cat's face was like, somebody save me. Like, his eyes were like saucers. It was just like, and it was the funniest shit ever. I'll remind me, I'll send you a link. And Hovind kept going on and on because Aaron was trying to pin him down as to what a fucking kind is, because none of these creationists can ever tell you what the fuck a kind is. And so Hovind kept saying that kinds were elephants and pine trees. So yeah. And then he started going on about, well, if evolution was true, let him know when an elephant in a pine tree had an offspring and all of this. And so the title of the after show was called Elephants and Pine Trees, a Love Story.
I've got a quick Aaron story for it. Well, first of all, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a picture of me and Aaron when he came.
Awesome. He's got you in a headlock.
Yeah, he's such a great guy, right? He's such a great guy. Did he ever tell you the story about the Sasquatch story?
Oh, yes. When he came to Toronto a couple of years ago, and I had dinner with him and Lalandra and a bunch of people, and he told the story then.
Oh, that's such a fantastic story. You've probably told it before, then we'll pass over that.
I've told it here, but basically, Aaron was out hitchhiking whilst wearing a large fuzzy sweater, and someone literally mistook him for Bigfoot.
Yeah, as the story goes, he's telling me the story. He says he's going through a wood area close to some town in Texas, and he's hitchhiking. It's getting dark, and coyotes are starting to track him. So Aaron, being the big guy, once in a while he would turn around and kind of roar at them to make him more skittish. And the coyotes are getting bolder and bolder. So Aaron's thinking, "Oh, okay, I'm in trouble here." So he's trying to flag down some cars, and cars are swerving around him and bolting. It's okay. Eventually, he gets picked up. He goes to whatever destination he's going to. As he's coming back and he's going through that same town, he gets picked up by this Texan good old boy. This guy tells him, "Oh, you got to be careful around here, Sonny. People have been reporting seeing Bigfoot lately in these areas."
And he figured out they meant him.
Such a great story. Oh, we gotta love Aaron. Who also has probably one of the best lines I've heard when he talks about the creationists. He says, "Ignorance is not what you just don't know; it's also what you won't know." And he's quite true. He's quite real about that.
I always also love his line when some creationist is babbling their head off. He's like, "Oh no, I'll let you finish, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong." But we've only got about 20 minutes left or so let's spend some time talking about your show, because
yeah, that kind of was the point of the show, wasn't it? Or some of it anyway. Oh, all right. Well, like I said, my show is an interview-based show. We usually have an interview once a week. Last week we talked to atheist cartoonist Rebecca Fox out of England. And next week, we're talking to Ira Pastor. We're talking about biomimicry. So these are the kind of topics. We're not necessarily just atheism. It has a atheism flavor to the show, for sure. I mean, we always have segments like Another Brilliant Moment brought to you by religion and that kind of stuff. But we don't necessarily just dwell on atheism. We try to demystify some things, or we'll try to bring some humanist stories as well. For example, not last week, but the week before, we have brought Dr. Del Rey and Dr. Veronica Drance to talk about the whole transgender issue, because it's actually a big issue right here in the area. There's a school trustee that compared a program called Soji 123. It's a school program that's taught to kids how to foster tolerance for people that might be different in their sexual identity. And he's a school trustee, and he compared it to child abuse. And that went all over the news. And I said, okay. So as a response to that, we decided to bring the expert, the psychologist, and the biologist, and hopefully we'll put that to rest. But now we also have a parent who has dealt with one of his transgender child, has been through Soji 123, which will come on our show as well because he heard our show. So that'll be a bonus episode. So that's the kind of stuff we do.
Oh, that's great. I love that. But I just want to say, so is the trustee that was objecting to this?
Yes, and of course, religious. Right? Well, he's not a bad guy. I gotta stress this. He's not a bad guy. I mean, he serves his community well and all that. It's tainted by his religious views, obviously, and that's why he's objecting to that.
That's a sore spot for me. So.
Behind him, though, there's a group called the Culture Guard, and that seems to be a group across Canada, and they are pushing him and supporting him in that sense. And these guys are almost like neo-Nazis.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of atheists kind of get involved in that kind of thing too.
Yes. So we thought, let's bring the psychologist, let's bring the biologist, and let's talk about this. Ask the questions. the people would ask, because some of the stuff was just absolutely horrible. I was getting anonymous letters from a Jane Doe, all of a sudden telling me some these horrible links and these horrible sources and this outrageous stuff. Like 90% of all gay men are infected with AIDS and shit like that. I said, no. It required a response, and we did that.
Good, excellent. I don't know if do you ever follow the Atheist Republic YouTube channel at all?
No, I don't. Well, I'm on their page.
Armin lives out your way. And
does he? How come he's not returning my emails then? I need to talk to him. I'd love to have him on the show.
Well, I might be able to help with that. He did an interview not too long ago, and this guy is also out your way, with a Buddhist Nazi.
Oh, wow. That's a combination.
Honest to goodness Nazi. Like, loves Hitler.
But a Buddhist.
But a Buddhist.
The
How do you do what I would get?
This must be horrendous.
I like Eastern religions, but I'm racist. Like, how does that happen?
Well,
probably goes into meditative state and goes, Sieg Heil.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. He even had the Hitler haircut. It was ridiculous. But
don't you think he was ruined that mustache look too? Nobody could ever have that mustache look again. I mean, that's totally.
I mean, it's not a very good mustache anyway, so it's like.
I mean, Charlie Chaplin kind of pulled it off, but that's about
it. It was about the same time, right?
It was.
Nobody can ever pull that mustache again in history. No way.
Charlie Chaplin did
My brother tried.
Oh yeah. No,
I used to call him Hitler too.
He even did an anti-Hitler film back at that.
Yeah,
time.
Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, The Great Dictator.
Yeah, The Great Dictator. It was awesome. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, you should check that out because that guy lives out your way. And he apparently shows up at certain he met Armin at a conference somewhere. And
well, there are weirdos everywhere, even in Canada, apparently. So
yes, I was floored by this guy. He was just the most bizarre thing ever. So yeah, I want to check that out. But yeah, we had Armin on 3-4 weeks ago to talk about the Iran protests and what's going on over there. So
yes, a lot of things happening over there. Worth keeping an eye on.
Definitely, because there's some of the protesters were getting arrested and beat up and things like that. So, okay. So is it just you? So how many hosts are on your show?
Well, I am the main host, but there's always a couple of co-hosts with me. We're usually about 3 or 4 of us, and it's people have come and gone throughout the years. It's the chemistry between us all that makes the show. And some people come on the show, and some people say, "Well, I don't want to be on the show because I don't know what to say." But that's exactly what I want from you, because you might be asking that question that I would never think of asking. Everybody needs to participate in their way, and I want to be able to connect with the audience. I mean, some people think like me, a lot of people don't think like me. But they might think like Nancy. Nancy has been with us for a long, long time. She used to do a segment called This Day in History. Now she does a top 10 segment and stuff like that. So we got things separating segments. We've had some fantastic guests in the past, anywhere from Seth Andrews to Matt Dillahunty to Lawrence Krauss to James Randi, the big names. We had them all. We didn't manage to get Dawkins, unfortunately, but that's okay. Eventually we might.
I got books signed by Dawkins, but I didn't get him on the show.
Yeah. Dawkins is really hard to book, and I'd love to be able to get Sam Harris as well, but the odds of that are slim.
Dawkins is so shy, actually. He's I don't know, like he obviously enjoys what he does, but you can tell that having to mingle in large crowds isn't the easiest thing for him.
Oh, and he's getting up there in age too, right? He's 75 now, and I managed to meet him at one of the conventions out here on the West. It was called Imaginal Religion. He was nice and gracious enough to pose for a picture and then sign a book, but unfortunately we couldn't get him for an interview. I usually bribe him with whiskey. That usually settles the deal, right?
I got to meet him at Imaginal Religion this past summer in Toronto.
I know. It's such a shame because Bill, you've probably met Bill Littlewood. He's a great guy. He's out of Kamloops here. And I was so hoping that he would move it from Vancouver to Abbotsford, because Abbotsford, I think, would be a nice way. But he's runs into some problems with the social justice crowd. And he decided, screw that shit, I'm going to Toronto. So it seems to work in Toronto, and I hope it does.
It did, but last I heard he wasn't doing it again.
Oh, no. Oh, that's a shame.
I heard, and we had another one in Toronto, the non-conference, and last I heard he wasn't doing it again either, so I don't know.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, you know very well, you do one or two podcasts. Just doing a podcast is a lot of work. It really is. So imagine building a conference and putting all that money down and getting these people to come in, and you need to have the support of the population behind you. And if that's always a big uncertain, it's a lot of stress. And I can't blame these people for bailing out.
And if you don't get the funding or the sales to fund going forward, it makes it really, really difficult.
Exactly. We right here in the Fraser Valley, we used to our group, a local group of atheists, is called the Fraser Valley Atheist, Skeptics, and Humanists. We used to try to bring some guest speakers once in a while, right? Every couple of months, we'd have somebody, and of course, you have to buy the plane ticket and the hotel accommodation. It wasn't too bad, you know. It was about $1,500 a piece. So it wasn't that bad. But, you know, we had one guy pocket the money up front, pay out front to have guest X come in, and then it was like pulling teeth out of people to give $20. I mean, we had Richard Carey up here, we had Eugenie Scott up here, we had Peter Boghossian up here. Are you really that much of a cheap ass that you can't figure out $20 to see Richard Carey? Really? Seriously? And it's like, it's one of those things about the atheist movement that I really find deplorable. It's like, they say herding cats. It's not just the herding cats. It seems a lot of people like tightwads too.
I will tell you, it's Canadian atheists, because atheists are like herding cats, but Canadian atheists are like herding cats on catnip. You know what cats do on catnip? They get stoned and they go to sleep, right? So it's us.
Maybe. I don't know if the Americans, maybe Morgan and Beth can tell us if they have these kind of problems down in the States. Because is that a Canadian phenomenon? I don't know.
I don't know. It's just like I think that with a lot of people, it's like, I mean, I'm kind of honestly at this point myself, it's like I probably wouldn't pay to see these people for a lot of reasons that I won't go into. But then also it's like, okay, God doesn't exist. I get it.
Yeah.
Like what else are we going to talk about?
But I think up here, like, I personally, I don't get bored of seeing some of the same people. Like, I've gone to see Ali Rizvi a bunch of times. He's a friend of mine, so whenever, and he lives in Toronto, so when there's stuff happening, I'll be like, oh, let's go see Ali again, kind of thing. That doesn't bother me. I've seen Chris DiCarlo several times because he lives here.
We have him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was looking at your site. I'm like, oh, you guys are going to talk to Chris. He's a lot of fun, and that sort of thing. But I think in Canada, because being an atheist isn't that big of a deal most of the time, we don't have that sense of urgency that real need for community. Like, a lot of Americans I've talked to that go to a lot of conferences, they're like, oh, I can finally be around some of my people, because they might be closeted where they live, or they might not be entirely closeted, but they keep it sort of under wraps, and they have to work with religious people all day, every day. And
yeah, that's the main reason I go to conferences anyway, is because, like, honestly would rather hang out with people than see a speaker.
Yeah, and I get like that too at times. Like, what was last Reason Con I went to? I watched more speeches that time because there were more people I knew that were speaking. But the first one I went to, I only actually went to see one speech, and that was David Fitzgerald. And most of the time I was running around, and the same with Reason Rally. I barely listened to any of the speeches at Reason Rally. I just ran around trying to meet people that I knew from the internet and things like that. Like that's what does it for me. Like I'm super excited that Morgan's going to come to Nashville.
Yeah, I'm super happy.
And I'm sitting there going, "Who's speaking?" Oh, Daryl Ray. I remember Daryl Ray is going to be there, so that's bonus. But
yeah, like some of those side issue things I might go to, but as far as like a talk about how much God isn't real, I'm just like, okay, well, I'll probably skip that one and go hang out with, my friends.
I don't think there's a lot of these kind of speeches anymore. I think of these speeches, all even if you take even some of the basic ones like Seth Andrews and all that, even he won't be talking about that. His speech will turn more on how I spoke as a Christian and how I look stupid watching the '80s bands of the Christian bands and stuff like that.
And I like that he does that. He did the Christianity made me talk like an idiot.
Yes, exactly. But isn't that kind of the trap that we were talking with Beth a bit earlier? The trap of apathy. I mean, this is one thing that Christians have always had. They've always stuck together, even if they're wrong, and are constantly on the attack. Constantly until they get right.
I think part of the mistake we fall into is, and you can thank the religious right and Christians in general for promoting this notion, and we've kind of fallen into their little web, is that atheism is a religion. And because many of us have come out of religious experiences in our past, we crave, so to speak, that camaraderie.
Yeah.
But the problem is atheism does not have leaders. No. We do not have a hierarchical structure. If we do, someone please show it to me, because I can't find it anywhere. Atheists per se, the only thing we have in common, okay, the four of us, we don't accept the God concept. Yeah. We don't accept God or God's supernatural or supernatural deities. That's it. Yeah. All these other issues are not atheism. I'm not saying we should not be concerned about other issues, but in some regards, like for me, I'm a lesbian. I am also disabled. I am also poor. I'm very poor. So those three core issues are issues that in some regards my atheism informs. So when I go to a conference like I'm going to NanoCon, it's going to be my second atheist conference that I've been to. So there's certain things that I'm looking for ideas, but I'm also looking to network. Yeah. I enjoy people. I jokingly say I hate people. I hate most of the people where I live, but I like to network because somewhere somebody might have that idea that I personally am missing. Some of the people on my friends list, people would think they're such an odd combination that I have for friends, but I learn from them. Our political views, our ideologies, we may be atheists, but our outside ideologies have nothing in common, but I learn from what they can present. So going to a conference for me, one has to be affordable because I'm very low income. So I think because of the uncertainty here in the U.S. currently with our current administration, and not just Trump, but also our Congress, people are taking kind of a, I won't say wait and see attitude, but I'm actually stockpiling food and my medicines that I can, because in 6 months, I don't know what's going to happen. All last year, I spent time battling the bullshit about the ACA. I lose my medication, I'm dead. And I think because of the atmosphere we have in this country right now, especially pertaining to politics, is really preventing people from finding what they need at these conventions, and they're letting other issues dictate, what should be presented. But it's whatever floats your boat.
Beth, we told you. Canada's taking over. We're coming down here.
I really wish you would, because I'm sick of fighting about the ACA.
You guys will have to start using the words like flavor and savor and all that stuff. You'll have to use maybe a more proper Queen's English, but it's happening.
Trust me, I've spent years trying to get rid of my Canadian accent, so please. I used to have a Canadian and Southern twang mixed together.
Well, I had the same problem because I was married to a guy from Virginia for years. So when I used to train, because I was basically teaching a classroom, people would ask me if I was American. I'm like, no.
Yeah, when I tell people I'm from Buffalo, they're like, well, you speak like a Canadian. Well, the Peace Bridge was right behind my house when I lived in the city. But I think though what it is that some individuals are looking for leaders and we don't have leaders, but that's just the way atheism is. And, when people fall off a pedestal for whatever reason, we can be, especially here in the States, we can be very harsh.
Yeah.
And it's an all or nothing proposition. You're either all in or you're all out. But for me personally, I'm not the type to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No, I agree. And we also have to be very careful in our language.
Yeah.
Some of the words we use, for example, people say, do you believe in evolution? You don't believe in evolution, right?
I accept it.
Yeah. It's a fact, you accept it or not.
Yeah, and I think and that's one of the things, I know when I do these Facebook debates, and I don't do them very often, and there's only certain topics I kind of jump in on, one being homosexuality in the Bible, because, I can do that in my sleep. But, and that's the thing, it's how we present, and I think with the arrival of some of the newer podcasters, I know with some of the Canadian podcasters like Logic and Vice Rhino and all of them, because they may be atheists, but they're focusing on, science. And even though I'm not really a science nerd, I am, especially when it comes to woo science, because after my stroke 3 years ago, some of the crap I got in my emails, and what, I had people telling me I should stop my medication and yada, yada, yada. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that I try to use my atheism to fight. Like, even in the conversation that we had before the show in the woo group, or the crazy group, I mean, he's like, well, why do atheists argue the Bible? Well, I don't. I could care less what you as an individual believe, but you bring that belief into legislators who are trying to legislate.
Yeah.
Then I have a problem. When your preachers are preaching that I should be executed, I have a problem with that. And yes, I'm going to argue, or if in the concerning SNAP, which is our food stamps program, and it's still floating around, although it's not prevalent. It will become prevalent once we hit election season again. Is that they were using 2 Thessalonians 3:10. Those who do not work do not eat, as a reason to justify cutting SNAP.
Yeah.
You do that, I'm going to push back. And yes, I'm going to delve into the context and what Paul was saying. And Paul was not talking about the government coveting SNAP. He was talking about the idle gossipers in the church. So yeah, and I think one of our friends said it best, is that as atheists, I think we're focusing on the external instead of what we should be focusing on is pushing back against religion. And I'm no way saying that other issues are not important. They are. But for me, the 3 issues are, how somebody, discrimination being LGBT, discrimination I face being disabled, although which is not much. But I can never leave the job I have because who's going to hire a stroked out 54-year-old? You know?
Yeah.
I can't leave the job I'm in, not that I have any intentions to, and that prevents me from moving to another state if I so wanted to do so. I can't.
Yeah.
I will never go, even though I'm approaching retirement age, I will never go beyond what I am now because of my stroke. And to me, that's wrong. But yet, then I have people telling me, well, you don't deserve health care. You're a lazy mooch. No, I worked 3 jobs for about 25 years. Don't call me a lazy fucking mooch. So I think there's a personal level in there, and I think there's also a movement level. I hate that word because we're really not a movement. We're a collection of individuals. I think we have to find within each of ourselves what we are passionate about and gear our conference attendance or lecture attendance according to those needs.
Makes sense. But we are about out of time, folks. So
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
That guy got me fired up in the debate group.
That's okay. Just quickly though, I looked at that culture guard people. Holy fuck, are they horrible? Damn. Yikes. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on those bastards and make sure they're not creeping around here. Yeah, and there's a whole section about the trustee guy and all of that. They've got a whole section devoted to him on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, and please promote anything the show and anything else.
If you guys want to follow the show, we're a bit of a different type of show. The best way to find us is probably the easiest one would be leftotvalley.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at LETV Podcast. Our main broadcasters are blogtalkradio.com. We're also on Stitcher, on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, etc., etc. Send me an email, leftotvalley@outlook.com. Let me know what you want to do. No problem. Let's have a chat.
Absolutely. And I did link the website, in the show description. So
I appreciate it.
Clickety-click that pretty easily.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, ladies, for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. For sure.
Peace.
And Beth, where do we find you?
Easiest way to find me is on Twitter at Dune9998. That connects to my blog, Havoc and Chaos, and I'm getting ready to put another 35 stories concerning church abuses. Oh, what fun. Yeah. That was just over the weekend. And that also connects to Facebook, which is under Beth A. Hambridge. Friend request me. But please, if you're a part of the paramilitary militia type groups that think that you're creating God's army, don't friend me because I'll delete you or block you. One of the two. Yes, I did have someone do that today. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? But yeah, and I'm also on YouTube, but I have not put anything out in a while.
That's okay. Awesome. And Miss Morgan, where do we find you?
All right, you can find me on the Biskeptical podcast of Trap and Moan. It comes out about every 2 weeks on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mostring. That's MOSTRING. And you can find me on Facebook, Morgan Stringer.
Excellent. And of course, you will find all of us at NanoCon in a couple of weekends.
Woohoo!
Yay. Just looking forward to hanging out with everybody, really.
Me, I wasn't invited.
So, Deb, where do we find you?
Oh, well, you find me also on Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, which airs on Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. at holycrapthevlogcast.com, and that's hosted by Shujin Tribble. And we have our motley crew of assorted panelists, and we talk about anything that Shujin wants to talk about, but generally skeptical and or atheist related. Yeah, and then there's also Full Chronic. I actually haven't put out an episode in a couple of weeks just because I've been a little run down and tired, and I've been sort of focusing on stuff that I have more obligations to. That's the great thing about being the only person on the podcast. If I decide I want a week off, fuck it, I have a week off. So hopefully I should have something to put out, because the next episode's going to be episode 13, Lucky 13. And I'm sure Allah will have lots of... Oh, and my husband just set off the smoke alarm. Isn't that fun? Good thing we're wrapping up. So I'll try to talk over it. It has a kill switch, so it should go off momentarily. I don't know what the fuck he's doing out there, but there we go. All right. Yay for live TV. But yeah, that's www.fullchronic.com, and you can find me reading the bizarre adventures of Allah and friends. A lot of repetition, let me tell you, but every once in a while Allah does something semi-exciting, so you never know. And yes, we will be here, of course, next week. And next week we are talking to Chris Rada and about David Barton's twisting of the Second Amendment. Oh, yay. So lots more gun stuff next week for sure.
All topics.
More gun stuff. Fun.
He's a dangerous man with a sound effects box, I tell you. Oh, I think my husband was welding in the basement. It stinks like burnt stuff. Lovely. Anyway, folks. But yeah, so we will be here next week, of course. The following week, we probably won't, because we'll all be in Nashville unless we decide to do some weird live thing. But I have a feeling we'll be too busy to bother. I don't know. I'm not going to promise anything, but probably we won't be here. And we are talking about possibly doing something fun the end of March called Sovereign Citizen Bingo. A friend of mine linked a video of someone else doing this the other day, and it was funny as shit. So I think we're gonna try playing that, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, Chris Rada next week, same time, 7:30 p.m. beyondthetrailerpark.com. And until then, I will leave you, as always, with our human creed for mankind. And Kevin, that takes about 2 minutes, just so you know. And we'll see everybody next week.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.